Well, we wanted to bring you some updates regarding the election. The Georgia Senate race between Democrat Reverend Rafael Warnock and Republican Herschel Walker is indeed heading to a runoff. Neither candidate is projected to receive the majority support needed to win the seat, and the runoff election will take place on December 6th.
Meanwhile, Nevada's Clark County says ballot counting for the Senate race between Republican Adam Laxalt and Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto will go into the next week, as will counting for major Senate and gubernatorial races in Arizona. This comes after Senate candidate Blake Masters and gubernatorial candidate Carrie Lake sued over ballot tallying in Maricopa County. The outcomes of these races will ultimately determine which party controls the Senate.
So the situation we're in now is that we have these three undecided races, and so we've had a flip. We had the Dems have had a pickup in Pennsylvania. If Republicans picked up in Nevada, that would undo that, and then it looks like. And it looks like that might happen. It looks like Arizona is not looking great for Blake Masters right now, so that would be a Democratic hold. That could change, but let's assume that's a Democratic hold. Then it just comes down again to this runoff in Georgia. That will be the ball game. But for Georgia to matter, Republicans have to flip Nevada, which, based on what I'm looking at, seems very much possible, but not at all for certain. We're apparently going to be still counting these ballots, I think, in both these states for a while, which is deeply frustrating, obviously, for the rest of the country and for voters in those states.
And
to be fair, there was a lot of
leading to some, skepticism from certain members in the Republican Party about what's going on there, and obviously in this kind of climate, I think there's a lot of reasons to be skeptical across the political spectrum. We've seen. Since 2000, 2016 rather, a lot of Democrats making claims about whether or not elections were stolen. Republicans have been making these sorts of claims, and any kind of delay. We saw progressives making these claims around Iowa in 2020 when Pete Buttigieg claimed victory there after there was some voting tallying mess ups. And it's not necessarily good in an environment where there's so much skepticism about the nature of our democracy for there to be these kinds of delays.
Well, and I'm as an avowed enemy of government incompetence. What is going on?
Yeah.
Get it together, people. It shouldn't be election month. It shouldn't stretch into the rest of. We need to know. Glenn
Greenwald's been making some great points about how efficient vote counting happened in Brazil and other places that we kind of look down the end of our nose at, as our former president described countries.
We're starting to have a robust history of the 2000 election, which now seems so long ago, and maybe people have put that out of mind given all the other difficulties and all the claims in 2016 and 2020. That was a historic. World history screw up of the election system, not of voters, of the people who designed the ballots. The butterfly one that causes you to vote for Pat Buchanan when you want to vote for Al Gore.
Hanging chads for Halloween the next year. It's a tough situation. Hopefully it will be worked out sooner rather than later. But it certainly is good for cable news broadcasters.
Well, lets us keep doing the who will win for a couple more days.
Well, in Wisconsin, Republican Ron Johnson defeated Democrat Mandela Barnes and won re-election, securing Republicans' most vulnerable seat in the Senate. Johnson spent the last few months of the race critiquing Barnes as soft on crime, specifically for his support of abolishing cash bail.
In Texas, Democratic Representative Vicente Gonzalez defeated Republican Representative Mayra Flores in her re-election bid for Texas's 34th congressional district. That's a race we paid a good amount of attention to here as we discussed, Hispanic voters turning to the GOP. Flores had won that seat in a special election earlier this year, but is not going to hang on. In a tweet yesterday, she said, "The red wave did not happen. Republicans and independents stayed home. Do not complain about the results if you did not do your part." So this is an interesting pushback to a lot of what we've had guests talk about on the show. Yeah.
Fascinating. I mean, I gotta admit that so much of this election result is destabilizing for me, and I think it's a good cautionary tale for how disconnected some of the punditry can be from the reality on the ground. The inevitability with which so many commentators spoke about the direction of the Latino vote. Her victory, Maya Flores' victory, being seen as a proof positive that the Democrats have basically failed Latino voters, which I would argue they have. I think both parties haven't really been meeting the needs of various communities in this country, if not all communities in this country outside of the 1%. But this, are we going to get a similar kind of commentary here about how Republicans aren't able to be in touch with Latino voters? And I really do hope there is more investigative reporting on the ground that gets to the bottom of how you can have these kind of flip-flops in such quick succession. Well, how long was she in? 5 months?
Yeah, but it does have to acknowledge what has Ron DeSantis done right, because he has brought Latinos into the fold in Florida, winning in Miami-Dade, winning virtually everywhere in the state. So what is he doing right, or what is unique about Latinos in Florida?
And that's
obviously
the question.
The Cuban
that's the
connection. It's the disdain for, an especial disdain for political socialism, something of that nature, perhaps.
Something of that nature. And I also think, especially with Latino voters, there is not enough of a conversation about how healthcare impacts their voting. This was a huge issue for Bernie in Nevada. It's how he got 70% of the Latino vote. It's how he got the Culinary Union to support him, rank and file to support him, even though Culinary Union leadership, which is huge in the state, went for Joe Biden. And as I listened to some testimonials from on the ground on Tuesday, especially in Nevada and more Latino-dominant parts of the country, I heard people extemporaneously bringing up healthcare issues quite frequently. And you heard it from Biden in a clip that we played earlier at the top of the show, when he talks about what we should be doing differently going forward, and he says nothing. He goes on to say we need to make sure people know what we've already done with respect to bringing down healthcare costs. And I think that he's right to emphasize that. We just came out of a pandemic. People are still feeling that very strongly, and Latino voters are the most underinsured population in the country.
Although right now in Nevada, if this holds, and again, it's too close, Adam Laxalt is at 49.4% with 436,000 votes. Catherine Cortez Masto, his Democratic opponent, Latina, trailing right now with 47% of the vote, 421,000 votes. This is according to NBC News, and this is 84% of the total.
Yeah.
So.
Well, another thing about Cortez Masto is that she did not. I'm not exactly sure what her healthcare messaging has been like, but she is a much more moderate Democrat who was one of the ones that was very antagonistic to student debt cancellation. So to the extent that that was a real pull for younger voters that swung overwhelmingly Democrat, she and Tim Ryan both are in a real struggle bus, in part because they rejected the popularity of that program.
Well, we're still going to talk about that more in I think the next segment. We'll have more Rising right after this. Stay with us.